It's not entirely unheard of. So my question is, so suppose there is a criminal who wants a gun, and we impose all of the regulations, we get rid of private sales through individuals, you have to go through an FFL dealer and all that kind of stuff. If somebody has criminal intent, do you think they're going to care about those laws anyway? No, and if they want a gun, if they want to get their hands on a gun, and there's enough of them who want to get their hands on guns, there's going to be a supply of black market guns that they'll be able to get fairly easily. Just like with drugs, we ban drugs, people still want them. It's profitable enough to do it, so people produce them and bring them in anyway. If you impose similar restrictions on guns, the same thing's going to happen with guns. Well, why shouldn't it? There's a supply, there will be a demand.
But if you're saying that, the law, that these laws that would go into place aren't going to help anything, why do we have laws in the first place? If you're going to say that if intent is always going to trump law, why do we have laws?
No, that's not why we have laws.
To your point, Mark,
Control society, right?
suggesting that further gun control laws are going to stop violence it's not the answer. Criminals are going to commit crimes with guns. If you further restrict guns, they will find ways to get them, and they will still commit crimes with them. Now, your argument that why do we have laws? If we enforce greater gun control, if we require people that do private sales to do background checks, all we're doing is hindering law-abiding citizens from getting the arms and the weapons that they have the right to have. That's the point. Is by increasing gun control, you're not going to prevent criminals from committing crimes. You're just going to prevent law-abiding citizens from exercising their right to bear arms and having the right to buy weapons when they please. I mean, that's all you're doing by increasing gun control. You're not stopping crime.
Yeah, and you asked why do we have laws. We don't have laws to prevent crime. Nobody's naive enough to think that if somebody is aggressive and crazy enough to want to be a criminal, that the law is going to stop them. The reason we have laws is so that we have an avenue to punish and prosecute and get them in prison when they do commit crimes. That's why laws exist. They're not there as preventative measures because they don't work as preventative measures. They're there to exact justice when a crime is occurred.
So they're to punish people when they break social norms, correct?
Well, I would say more than social
Societal norms.
I would say more than societal, but
All right, to go off of what the Republicans or college Republicans were saying, it's if you can pass that, if you have nothing wrong with you and you can legally own a gun, you have no mental issues of the sort, you're gonna pass that background check. It's not gonna take any longer. It's not. It's gonna be the same thing. Oh, okay, maybe it'll take an extra day longer. If you can't plan out your duck hunting trip 5 days in advance and get your gun 5 days in advance, you probably shouldn't be duck hunting. Or any type of gun. The idea is to make it harder for those individuals who shouldn't have guns from having guns. That's the idea.
it didn't work for drugs.
Policy information.
We already have 10,000 gun laws on the books in the U.S. already. I mean, if that doesn't have some significant impact, why would you expect adding additional laws to help?
Are all those laws fair to all the individuals that they?
I haven't read all of them, so I can't tell you. I mean.
But I think the thing that we're going to keep going back to this because it's important, but these criminals that want to carry out these crimes, they're not going to wait for a background check. They're just going to go ahead and do it.
But those criminals right now can go to an expo center, buy that gun, and commit that crime so much easier. So yeah, but you gotta find the black market. You have to go somewhere. If you have a gun show and the college Republican Party or like the Republican Party is promoting that gun show, how easy is it to find out where that gun show is, where it's going on, and everything? Do you know where the black market is, or anywhere to find guns on the black market? I know I don't. Sorry, I try to avoid that type of area, but that's just anybody. It's easier to go to a gun expo center if you have bad intentions, purchase that gun and carry out your bad intentions.
All right, anybody in this room, and you don't have to raise your hands or nothing, but anybody in this room who's ever smoked marijuana knows where at least one black market is. They're not that hard to find. As long as the green market. know the people, and people who are criminals of this sort generally do know the people. It's not that difficult to find a black market selling whatever you need. It's really not that complicated.
I think going off of that, I mean, if you're involved in a criminal mindset, you're probably going to be involved in other ways. So, I mean, he used the example of marijuana. Okay, sure, that's easier to get. Let's talk about heroin, for example, okay? That's much more deadly than marijuana, correct? But people are finding it, people are distributing it. It's going to be the same with guns, and it has been, and that's how it's going to continue to be.
And we're just about out of time. So.
And we have ran out of time for this particular portion. Let's give our debaters a round of applause. All right. Okay. The next topic that we're going to be talking about is going to be the conflict in the Middle East. It will be just like the last one, a full half hour, 5 minutes each position, as well as a 15-minute discussion portion between the debaters. Afterwards, we will be having a 10-minute intermission. During that time, me and Scott are going to go down the rows and collect, hopefully, which all of you have the question sheets. And after our last topic, which will be wealth inequality, we will be having questions from the audience. But for now, we will be staying with the topic of the Middle East, especially as it is so topical, especially after the what happened at Brussels, especially with ISIS. And the question will be about ISIS. What should be done about the issue of ISIS, if anything at all? The list will be the Young Americans for Liberty first, followed by the College Democrats, then the College Republicans. So, Young Americans for Liberty, you have the floor.
Thanks, Matt. So first off, I just want to thank both orgs for coming out, as well as Matt's org as well, for helping organizing it last week. For helping organize, thank you. So I think when you think about ISIS, you have to think about our past, all of our past and present interventions typically around the world can all be associated with one CIA word, blowback. Or as the CIA defines it, the unintended consequences faced by an operation. So all of these interventions and such, much of it was associated with the Bush administration. We bombed 4 different countries: Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, and Somalia. That was with other boots on the ground, and drone strikes, that kind of thing. When you think about it actually, though, in reality, Obama has bombed almost twice as many countries worldwide. He has had drone strikes in Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Somalia, Yemen, Libya, and Syria. So I think you need to consider that kind of violence and destabilization has been perpetuated, not just stayed the same or gotten better. So going along the lines that ISIS has especially been created through blowback. So according to the Huffington Post on October 15th, 2015, from an article then, 90% of people killed in 2012 drone strikes were not the intended target. So I think you need to consider this creates much of the blowback, because if you go in and you drone strike and you kill that one leader you're aiming for, but you kill 10 people while you're there, that creates 10 families then without kids, without mothers, without fathers. And that's what, in my mind, creates ISIS. You have that whole impact of that. Another root cause, I believe, of ISIS is foreign occupation. As a nation today, we have 900 military bases worldwide in 130 different countries. And that is completely what I think not what America is about. I think it's quite ironic that we were built on self-governance and not being, getting away from the empire. And now we have become the empire. And I think that is what one of the root causes of ISIS is that sort of thing. So, like I said, I focused kind of on the drone war with, in terms of the blowbacks. I think the epitome of failure in terms of the drone war comes down to the sheer economics on top of the social factors and political factors as well. So I think you have to consider, we have a $250 million drone that fires a $50 million missile at a $100 tent. I think if you really think about it that way, that makes absolutely no sense in my mind, for, just letting that sink in. That's just absolute waste. I think we also need to discuss, ISIS. It's been a lot in the news. It's always on CNN, it's always on Fox, it's always on CNBC, that kind of thing. So I think we need to discuss kind of the overall threat of terrorism. So overall in the last decade, about 3,000 Americans have died from terrorist attacks, or that's about 300 a year. 700,000 people die each year from heart disease. 550,000 people die each year of cancer. Yet terrorism funding is 50,000 times higher than any other cause of death in this country. I think you need to look at it from, we spend more than the next 10 countries combined on the military budget. So I think our interventions have actually made us less safe in the last 40 to 50 years. So you really need to look into that. And that's kind of that whole term of blowback. By killing, this leader and killing 10 people and ruining that village, you're creating the hostile environment for ISIS to rise and build up. I think you have to also couple this with the fact that the ISIS threat isn't as big as it's perpetuated to be. They have no state, they have no armed forces, they have no army, no navy, no air force. I don't believe ISIS is the threat we've been told that it's going to be, and perhaps their biggest threat or maybe their Toyota pickup trucks.
And their goats.
And their guns.
All right. Next up will be the College Democrats.
Today we face three great challenges above all others. First, to win the global war against terror. Second, to stop the spread of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. And third, to promote democracy and freedom around the world, starting with a peaceful and stable Iraq. To meet these challenges, we need a new national security policy guided by four new imperatives. First, America must launch a new launch and lead a new era of alliances for the post-September 11 world. Second, we must modernize the world's most powerful military to meet the new threats. Third, in addition to our military might, we must deploy, that is, an American arsenal, all that's in our American arsenal. That includes our diplomacy, our intelligence system, our economic power, and the appeal of our values and our ideas. Fourth and finally, to safeguard our freedom and ensure our nation's future, we must end our dependence on Mideast oil.
Furthermore, as the threats facing America have evolved over the years, so too has our ability to respond to them. Our national security personnel are the most dynamic and well-trained in the world, and we must never forget the solemn duty that they fulfill for our nation. Democrats are committed to ensuring that troops have training, equipment, and the support they need when they are deployed, and the care that they and their families need and deserve when they return home. Defending America is not just a question of defending our borders. We must continue to support and train our military to meet the challenges of 21st century threats. That's why President Obama and congressional Democrats have modernized our military and made it a top priority, while also eliminating outdated programs and unnecessary spending. Democrats are focused on preventing terrorism across the globe. This means continually to invest heavily in intelligence and information sharing and promoting those networks among our allies. We will continue to strengthen our ability to keep nuclear and biological weapons out of the hands of terrorists, promote efforts to better ensure border security, and augment defense of our national infrastructure. We've already made real progress on our key long-term national defense objectives, stopping the spread of nuclear weapons and preventing vulnerable nuclear materials from falling into the hands of terrorists. The Democratic Party also realizes that there is no greater responsibility than protecting the American people. We understand that the indispensable role of the United States must be to continue and play a promoting role of international peace and prosperity. And because of these steps that we have taken, the United States is leading once again, and America is safer, stronger, and more secure.
And also something that kind of contributes to kind of the problems that we're facing into kind of our foreign policy is the global threat of global warming, of course. And the Defense Department in 2004, in the report says, in our defense strategy, we refer to climate change as a threat multiplier because it has potential to exacerbate many of the challenges we are dealing with today, from infectious diseases to terrorism. We are already beginning to see some of those impacts. And Obama, in a May 2015 speech, says he understands that climate change, that it didn't cause the conflicts we see around the world, yet we also know that it served to help in a drought that created instability in Nigeria that is also that was exploited by terrorist groups in the Boko Haram.
And to achieve a lot of these goals that we talked about, the United States believes in the power of the coalition. We currently have a coalition that has been fighting ISIS. I think we even have a list. The coalition is led by the United States, has Australia, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Jordan, Morocco, Netherlands, the UK, and Turkey. Along those lines of the coalition and battling ISIS, we need to keep in mind the balance of the needs of the Syrian people, the Syrian rebels, what Assad has been doing with chemical weapons, and what ISIS is doing with chemical weapons as well. Just to give everybody a heads up, with ISIS, Donald Trump has been featured in their most recent recruitment video. They are using him to recruit fighters to fight against America. We view, as Democrats, that is a huge, huge problem. One of our front-running presidential candidates should not be used in a training video and recruitment video for our biggest enemy currently, that is ISIS. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have the college Republicans.
So, in our opinion, we've really reached a critical point in our fight against ISIS. No terrorists have been able to slip through counterterrorism defenses, and jihadist networks, even while being targeted by counterterrorism officials, have been able to successfully carry out multiple attacks around the world. The current administration, while taking some action, we believe it's not taking the issue as seriously as it needs to be. Starting with calling ISIS the JV team, to an interview with ABC in November, stating that ISIS isn't gaining any strength and that they're successfully contained. This continued again recently, with the president claiming in an interview that ISIS isn't an existential threat. Rather than continue the narrative of containing ISIS, we believe we need to defeat them. Among some of the solutions Republican candidates have presented are intensified airstrikes and assisting with armed forces on the ground. One thing that many Republicans in Congress have talked about is expressing positive sentiments towards arming the Kurdish. We agree with this. The Kurdish troops have proven that they can defend their territory in the past by defending their territory from ISIS military assaults. This would also serve as an alternative to putting actual troops on the ground, considering that a large portion of Americans do not support that. We believe that we need to take a leadership role as America in the Middle East rather than receding, because ultimately we believe ISIS will continue trying to attack our allies in the region and will look for any opportunity they can to attack us right here at home.
To the college Dems, first of all, I really would like to say that it's completely ironic how you brought up the care and that we would like to give our veterans when they come home to their families, when Republicans have really been the only, strong front runners when it talks about, the VA. I mean, you can talk all you want how much you care, but you haven't really shown it lately. The United States needs to begin putting more effort into the fight against ISIS like we've discussed, and doing so would be putting more troops on the ground. However, they necessarily do not need to be our troops. Cruz has recently come out and said that it would be important if we got Kurdish fighters, more of them, to be put on the ground and to save our troops, but we need to come out with a coalition and give them the necessary plans of action and the weapons that they would need to help fight this. Creating a coalition with the Kurds would be beneficial, like it has in the past, as Allison has recently just discussed. So putting American boots on the ground is not necessary, like I said, but as long as we begin to put our trust in Kurdish troops and really give them what they need, I feel like ISIS wouldn't be as much of an issue as it is now.
All right. thank you very much. We will now be going into the 15-minute portion of the discussion portion of this part of the debate. Does anyone have any pressing comments or responses to the other side? Yeah? All righty. Take it away, Zach.
So, folks, the Republicans, you mentioned boots on the ground, especially Kurdish boots on the ground. I think you need to think about what it means to arm, these rebels and things such. Syria, we have CIA-funded rebels fighting Pentagon-funded rebels as we speak right now. We funded them, we paid them, we paid I think it was $4 or $5 million each troop to train them, and then many of them even joined ISIS. So, when you think about going through with that, it's easy to say we should have Kurdish boots on the ground and all that kind of stuff, because that makes sense, but why even intervene at all? The Democrats brought up building Iraq, kind of, the idea of nation building. Since we've gone in after 9/11, 158,000 people have died. You guys brought that up. You brought something up about Iraq, about how we should be there. So since we've been there, 158,000 people have died. The documented number of suicide bombings, there was 0 before we were there, and now there's a ton of them. Since we've been there, it hasn't gotten better. I think if you had to look at it from those countries that I was talking about earlier, that Obama has drone striked, Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Somalia, Yemen, Libya, Syria. Can you name any of those that are better off with us being there? And then you have to go along with the loss of life on our end, the absolute, big, massive amount of resources we're pouring in. I really don't believe there's any benefit to us being there, that kind of thing. Another thing about ramping up support in, the Middle East, the idea a lot of Republicans have brought up in these debates is the no-fly zone in Syria, which I think is absolutely crazy. Because you have a no-fly zone in Syria, you got to remember there's Russian jets flying over there. So basically asking for World War III then. So another thing is, we are 19, probably $20 trillion in debt. Why do we have to have the leadership role? Why do we need to have 900 military bases around the world? Why do we need to have, all of that? There's no, maybe there's a time and place for that, but I believe we'd actually be safer off if we actually removed these military bases, because you have a foreign occupation in their backyard, which is, I think, kind of that reason. So.
And also, I'd just like to say about ISIS, there's sort of this attitude on both sides that both sides express, is that the United States is the one that needs to go in and sort of deal with ISIS, and we need to go in there and get them, whether it's by having our own people go in there and get them or funding somebody else to go in there and get them. The United States is not at all necessary to removing the ISIS threat. Iran, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Syria, all these different countries that are surrounding the region where ISIS is operating, they want them gone even worse than we do, because they're right in their backyard. And when you look at the militaries that are in the region, the state-sponsored militaries, combined, they have a total of over 5 million troops that they can deploy, whereas ISIS is somewhere between 20 and 30,000 guys in pickup trucks with goats, as my associate pointed out earlier. All of these countries have air forces. We know this because we still have the receipts for selling them those air forces. So I think we already put enough weapons into this region that the governments in these regions are more than capable of dealing with this threat. They do not need our help in the least.
Alright, so first of all, to respond to the Republicans saying that the Democrats have not done anything for
I never said anything,
All
I
right.
just said you're very weak right now.
Very weak right now, okay. I'm not sure if you know, one of the main presidential candidates is Bernie Sanders. He's the former chairman of the Veterans Affairs and, Joint Veterans Affairs Committee. Former chairman, and he also co-sponsored with John McCain, former or still current Republican out of Arizona, the Veteran Access, Choice, and Accountability Act, which expanded the VA and the benefits for it, access to private health insurance through still give subsidies to get that private insurance if you didn't choose to go through the VA, and also expanded mental health, because we know, I believe it's 22 veterans per day do commit suicide. So to say that we're weak right now, I'd say is the opposite, considering it was shot down by the Republican-controlled Congress. Furthermore, we do want to comment on the drone strikes. We know just recently the CIA President Obama has ordered the CIA to stop doing the drone strikes because CIA wasn't necessarily going through all the military protocols, so there was some backlash. And again, kind of what some of the libertarians were saying were true, that some of the drone strikes weren't necessarily hitting all those intentional targets. So President Obama has admitted that there has some mistakes have been made, and we are in the process of changing that so that doesn't happen. But where we do moderately agree, the college Republicans are in the coalition effort, arming the Kurds and our allies in that area, our known allies. We also realize that arming those allies, at the time they may be allies, down the line they may be enemies, and we have seen that, and we do need to learn from what history has taught us in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
Relating back to veterans too, Sanders actually won the 2014 Colonel Arthur T. Merrick's Congressional Leadership Award for the Military Officers Association of America for his leadership in support of veterans as well.
I only brought it up because it seems like in every single presidential debate, the Republicans like to discuss on it, and we're so passionate about it, but it kind of gets swept under the rug during other Democratic debates. So I first want to go off with... I first want to go off to Yale. You talked about boots on the ground. I don't think the Republican Party necessarily wants to put our boots on the ground, which, okay.
I think if you took a poll of them, they would.
Okay.
There's only two Republican presidential candidates that suggested that, and both of them are still not in the race right now.
Yeah. Recently, Cruz and Kasich, don't really look too hot right now, but they both said that they would not put our boots on the ground. But it goes back to Obama and his administration giving weapons to other countries who in the past would have not proven trustworthy of what we have been able to give them, whereas the Kurds have. And it goes back to, down the line, we might not be able to trust them, but right now, it's for our best interest.
I mean, this all comes down, with the college Democrats, we have minor disagreements on how we should take care of ISIS and how we can handle ISIS. A lot of them are rhetorical differences in the way that ISIS is talked about and the way that the war on terror is discussed. The difference here between the college Republicans, college Democrats, and then Yale is really if you think that ISIS should be taken seriously. And as far as we agree, the Republican Party agrees, ISIS has proven that they're not only ruthless, but they intend to kill civilians, they intend to kill people that don't agree with them, and they're capable of carrying out terror attacks around the world. Now, at this point, there haven't been large organized attacks all over the globe, but do we want to take a risk? We have to ask the question, is it worth risking letting ISIS get to a point where they could threaten America and they could threaten us on our homeland? I would say that ISIS is a serious threat. I would assume to say that the college Democrats think they're a threat too, but the main difference here is if you actually think ISIS is a threat. We've seen terror here at home. We've seen it before and we don't want to see it again. So in terms of the college Republicans, what we support and what our party supports is taking a strong stance against it, taking a preventative stance to make sure that terrorism doesn't come to American soil, to make sure not only that we're safe, but that our allies are safe, that our allies in the Middle East and in Europe are safe as well.
So in the wise words of Ben Franklin, those who give up security for freedom deserve neither. So how should we then resolve this issue? Should we have another Patriot Act? Should we spy on Americans? Should we invade privacy? Should we have a collection of metadata? I mean, where does it stop? You know, like I said, they have no state, they have no army, they have no, you know.
You have Toyota pickup trucks, though.
So I just wanted to comment on that, because I think it's a slippery slope if you keep going on that line. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on what Obama's comments on drone strikes and that kind of stuff. In 2012, Obama redefined, so I encourage you all to go out and onto like some kind of news source, try to find information about a drone strike. You'll notice it'll say militants. Obama in 2012 redefined militant to mean any military-aged male in a strike zone. So what that opens it up to is a complete Pandora's box of anybody could really be considered a militant. So, and Obama also ended collection on the data from, you know, how many people are killed on drone strikes a while back as well. And I just want to touch on a few other things. Also, Bernie Sanders, by the way, has come out, he's in favor of drone strikes. You can Google that, he said it at least. That kind of thing, I just want to make sure that's aware. Because I think really until you get rid of these vehicles, some of this blowback doesn't end. And the last thing I wanted to mention, the Democrats mentioned a little bit about climate change in the U.S. military. I just want to make you aware, everyone aware that the U.S. military is the biggest polluter on the planet for anything worldwide. Of any single organization, the U.S. military is the largest polluter worldwide.
They were going back and forth amongst themselves a little bit over, well, your party gave weapons to people we couldn't trust, we want to give weapons to people we trust, and stuff like that. The problem of generating blowback against the United States in our foreign policy is not something that's exclusive to just one party. I mean, ever since we've started doing drone strikes, both parties have predominantly been in favor of it. Yeah, sure, Obama is giving weapons to a lot of the wrong people, but Bush gave weapons to a lot of the wrong people. Bush sent troops into a lot of the wrong countries. Before him, Clinton gave weapons to a lot of the wrong people, and he sent troops into places like Somalia where we didn't need to be. Reagan gave weapons to a lot of the wrong people, and he sent troops into Lebanon and got a bunch of our Marines killed. This is not a problem that is unique to one party or the other. Both parties are warfare parties. And it's easy to understand why, with a defense budget of $650 billion, larger than the next dozen countries combined, they all want to be able to dip into that stash and send it back to their constituents. So yeah, I'll support building new tanks if you build them in my district. Yeah, I'll support R&D for that new jet fighter if you put the R&D in my district. And that's how that ends up happening. They want to, you know, help out their buddies, they want to help out their constituents, and by giving them some free goodies. So why not? Who cares if a bunch of people overseas get killed, or we get terrorists coming after us, or whatever happens. So that's the fundamental problem we have to tackle about the two parties when it comes to this issue, is we need to have people in Washington who aren't warfare people, who want to reduce the size of the military, who want to bring troops home, who want to stop killing so many people overseas.
We would just like to say that we do agree that we do believe ISIS is a serious threat and does need to be taken seriously, which is why we have pushed so hard for the coalition. And when it comes to drone strikes, the coalition is going to be our best ally in that. They're the ones that are over there that can gather the information that we need so we can make better decisions on our drone strikes. We have known that we clearly have not gotten the best information over the years past because of the blowback that has created by drone strikes. But Bernie Sanders, in supporting drone strikes, has said we need better information before we authorize those. One of those other things is we need to never forget what happened in World War II. We said that never again will we let genocide or the use of chemical weapons happen on anybody in the world, and we need to stand by that. When we have ISIS using those chemical weapons on civilians, that's not okay, and that needs to be taken seriously.
On the comment too, with the thing about the warfare parties, there is truth to that, but also you have to take a look at our candidates running, such as Bernie, for instance, and he's looking to, for instance, we spend way too much of our tax money on our military, and he's looking to refocus that and bring our troops home, and he wants the coalition of those Middle Eastern troops to take care of ISIS, not us. He doesn't want troops on the ground. So, it's a start.
Probably still won't take us
Only
forever,
starts.
but-
And that is time. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll be having a very quick 10-minute intermission. We will be starting once again at 8:22 sharp. Me and Scott will come down the road collecting the audience questions for the final quarter. Thank you.
Around the actual racer, like a big white racer. Yeah, and that's I was looking for that. And it was
Howdy, people.
Hey folks, those of you that are still here, if you want to do a question, excuse me, but if anyone wants to fill out a question, they're still outside. If it wasn't handed to you, they're right outside the door. You can grab one, write a question really quick, and we'll take it from you and we'll look at
yeah, I call it the next time. I think you just give one. I gave mine to Scott already. The first, the gun debate one? Yeah, I was like, oh, it's more Democrat. Well, I mean, there's like 4 people against 2.